Wow, that's the second week in a row. I have had to restart it twice. It's told me, no, not available. Thank goodness. My heart started for a little minute there. Good morning. Happy Sunday. I hope you are well. Tell me where you're tuning in from if you are here watching. Yeah, I don't know why that's happening every week. I'll have to look into that. Anyway. All right, what's today's topic? Today's topic is choosing the hard thing. And everything's hard when you've got lipedema, right? Everything. So the food's hard, movement's hard, getting around is hard, clothes are hard, exercise is hard, everything's hard. And I've seen a lot of different memes, and people talk about this in lots of different areas of choosing your hard. And it's true, doesn't make it easier, but it is true that, choosing your hard, it's, quitting or doing the hard thing, they're both hard. But what's going to get you further down the track with your health and wellness, right? So I thought I'd dive into this a little bit because it is a tricky one. And it's that old saying, short-term gain, long-term pain, or the other way around, short-term pain, long-term gain, right? And we kind of live in a society now where it's a pill for every ill, and we're looking for the short-term gain because it's easier. And life is tricky, life is hard, and we're all going through it. So naturally we look for the easy things. Oh, that herb might help us. Excellent, let's do that. Oh, that might help us. Oh, let's try that. Whatever the easiest. And I see this play out time and time again on my other platform, Thyroid School. It's like you put up a post that's like, just to take this herb or whatever, and it's so popular. And I get it. It's so hard doing the harder thing. It really is. But let's take a supposedly easy thing for lipedema, like compressions. Sounds easy, sounds like the way to go. However, from what I understand, and I have not bought compressions yet, so I look at it and go, oh, they look really hard to put on. Am I going to even be bothered doing that? They cost a lot of money because a lot of them are, I think, custom made. So do I want to spend the money on an item that I may not wear? I may not wear because once we move to Asia and even up here, it's really, really hot. It would be hard work wearing the compressions in heat. So there's so many different ways of looking at, oh, the compressions, oh, what an easy fix of helping my lipedema. Is it though? So it's a really, really tricky territory. And I just want to bring it to your attention that sometimes we've got to find a way. Good morning. Sometimes we've got to find a way to do the hard. And I say this from my perspective of, I trained as a naturopath to try and help myself. I was the plant-based queen. It was actually easy for me to do that. That was not hard in any way because I love learning. I love finding out about things and how our body works. So the training wasn't hard. It was hard, but it was an easy hard for me. Eating plant-based, that wasn't hard for me. I was naturally vegetarian. So changing to carnivore was the hard thing for me. Having weight loss surgery, so hard, not for the reasons that you think though. It was more for, what are people going to say? Am I going to be judged? People are going to think it's the easy way out. Let me tell you, it's not the easy way out as somebody who has been through it. It may look easy and, oh my God, no, it is not. So everything is hard in that. If we want to achieve something, if we want to get better at something, if you're an athlete or you want to be the best tennis player, my dad was a tennis coach. So that is, you've got to do the hard thing. You've got to train every day. You've got to, so it's no different with our health. If we want to improve it in some way, shape, or form, even if it is a disease that you cannot reverse, that is with you for life until they know more about it, maybe in our lifetime, maybe not, who knows, but we all want to feel better today, right? So I think the only way to feel better today is to choose the hard, and to choose the hard that we know is going to help us. How you do that, depending on what space you're in, is different for everybody. And I was speaking to somebody the other day that it was very apparent to them and to me that the problems that they were going through was stress. And, that's a lot of people. That's most people today, is stress related. And they said to me, "Oh, so have you got what are your tricks for just getting rid of the stress?" Because it was the cortisol. It literally showed up in their blood tests. And I was like, well, you can do kinesiology, you can do this, you can do that. There's been no response ever since, because nobody wants to deal with that side of things. Life is so tricky, and it feels hard for so many people that trying to deal with that is even harder. So where do you start? It's you have to start with yourself. You have to start with your feelings. You have to start with what you can do. I did a video last week on how to set a plan for yourself. And the first thing about that is, the first part of that plan was knowing who you are and what you're dealing with. And this is, strangely enough, one of the hardest things people struggle with is, who are they? What can they do? What is within your power to actually achieve, And you've got to get honest with yourself, Are you prepared to walk every day? Are you able to walk every day? I put in my plan in that video that I live with my husband. Our son doesn't live at home anymore. He's down in Perth. So for me, that took into account that, well, it's actually easier for me to cook separate meals if I needed to, because I don't have to think about kids and things like that. So knowing yourself and knowing what you're prepared to do in choosing your hard is really vital. It's probably the most important thing to know, is what you're prepared to do to dig yourself out of the hole that you might be in. I went and studied, but that was an easy kind of hard for me. The weight loss surgery, that was a hard thing, but for mental reasons, not for physical reasons, even though the physical aspect of doing that surgery was hard. The hardest part was, people are going to judge me. People are going to think I took the easy way out. And even if they don't think that, it doesn't matter if they don't think that. It's what we think. It's what we think they're thinking. This is the funniest thing about people, is we think for them, and it's never about us. It's never about us. So there's so many hard aspects to this, and I had no idea when I studied about thyroid disease and myself and all that kind of thing. I had no idea that I was heading down this road of finding out about lipedema. I knew I had it, found studies. That's why I had the weight loss surgery. But I figured I had tried everything else prior to that. I hadn't, because I hadn't considered carnivore. That to me was ludicrous. Like, who would do that? So whether or not I would have changed my outcomes by following that, and because I knew from my studies that even keto could bring on thyroid problems. So I was like, well, I'm not going down that road, am I? Because I've already got thyroid problems. So everything's tricky. And I think one of the hardest parts is us allowing ourselves or challenging ourselves to change our mindset or change our belief system and trying new things. So if we don't do that, then we're always going to be stuck in this hard space of what we think is hard. And there's way less choices if you get stuck in your belief system. One of the things that I discovered about myself when I did that video last week of making a plan and who am I wrote down, I'm open-minded to new ideas, which I wasn't 5 years ago at all. I was like, no, plants are the way to fix everything. No, this is my belief on thyroid disease. This is like, I just had this very dogmatic view of how things should be fixed. And I just hadn't done it long enough. I hadn't hit on the perfect amount of plants for me, or juicing or whatever. Yet it wasn't for me. Lipedema, like all the studies they've done so far, plant-based was not for me. So the hard thing for me is to stick to carnivore, because I naturally gravitate towards plants. That is the hard thing. So, the first thing I do every morning now is, like, I just had meat for breakfast before the coffee, because that sets up your blood sugar for the day, and it sets up my adrenals. It tells me I'm safe. When you eat protein first thing in the morning, from an adrenals perspective, it takes you out of fight and flight. It makes you feel safe because you've eaten, you've got protein. So your body's like, oh, we're good, we're safe. So I would much rather toast with avocado and maybe some persimmon on it and some nigella seeds. You can see where I've come from, right? I would much rather that for breakfast, but I do the harder thing for me, which is eating meat. And some days I'm just like, I'm just not interested. But when I pick the hard, when I do the things that I wouldn't normally, it's not terrible. I quite enjoy the meat, excuse me. But it shows up in my statistics. It shows up on my blood sugar. When I take my blood sugar levels, it shows up on the ketones. It shows up on the scales. It shows up in my clothes. It shows up in my legs and the cuffing, the inflammation, right? So when I choose the hard, the rest of my life gets a little bit easier. And I think that's what we have to always consider, is that when we're choosing the easy, it's not always going to make life better for us. But we're programmed to pick the easy. I don't know if anyone's seen the movie WALL-E, WALL, and then it's an E. This is a kids or an animated movie from when our son was little, and he's 25 now. So, but they're in this spaceship because Earth was no longer any good, or it was toxic, or whatever we did to it. And they were in this spaceship for thousands of years. And as the generations went round, they made life really easy for the humans on there. And they were being traveled around on these little floating vehicles. They didn't have to walk. They didn't have to stand. They had food brought to them. They were huge. They were in a bad way. If they fell off their little floating vehicle, then they couldn't even stand up, because they made life just too easy for them. So I think about that often, because I see the scooters, for example, that are everywhere. And scooters are fabulous, the e-scooters, the electric ones. But we were driving along one day, and there was this kid, and he would have been, I don't know, I'm going to say high school age. And up here, I get the scooters because they're really convenient for the high schoolers to get to school. It's really hot here. It saves the parents. I totally understand them. But this kid had a milk crate. So it was already an e-scooter. He didn't have to do anything, just had to press it. But he had a milk crate on it so that he could sit on the scooter. And that totally reminded me of WALL-E, because I'm like, wow, it wasn't easy enough that he just had to stand there. He needed to sit on it. And I think this is what's happening. When we choose the easy stuff, we're making the even slightly hard stuff seem too hard. If we don't continuously on a daily basis try and pick the harder thing, we get used to things getting easier and easier. So the only way out of this is to literally pick the harder thing each day. Pick the protein for breakfast, meat, order the compressions, see if they make a difference. This is the kind of thing that we need to do for our choices for a chronic disease that so far there's no cure for. So if there's no cure for this, I want to make sure I keep it the absolute minimum for the rest of my life. Will I be able to? Who knows? I don't know. Will I move to Asia and eat all the seed oils because every street food vendor is cooking in seed oils? I don't know. I can only do what I can do today. And today, after I'm finished this, my husband and I will go for a walk. If you've seen any of my videos, you know I'm not a fan of exercise, but that's choosing the hard, that's doing the hard. So on our weeks off, for example, so this week has been his week off work, we get up at 6 a.m. and go for a walk instead of a sleep in. Okay, so that's the hard. It's not going for the walk. It's because if we go for a walk at 5 o'clock in the afternoon when he gets home from work on his work weeks, it is hot. So we choose the hard of getting up at 6 a.m. when we could be sleeping in on days off because it's easier in the long run. Do you know what I mean? It's just, I know it's tricky for people, but honestly, if I could say one thing, it would be every day choose something hard that it's just a little bit like doing these lives. These are hard for me. Okay, sitting here and talking. It's great when somebody interacts with me and I can respond and chat, but this is hard for me. But I know because I get the messages that I've helped somebody think of something differently. So me doing something hard here helps someone down the track. And in return, generally, I learn something as well about myself. So choosing the hard always comes back, doing YouTube videos in general, that's hard. But by doing the YouTube videos, I've got to watch other videos and I've got to learn more about this disease to share on a video. So that helps me. A lot of commentators say AI will make life too easy. Also, it makes sense. It's not good for us. Yes and no with that. I think that AI is not going to change us with our health and choosing the hard of what we eat and how we move and saying no to certain things, or, from a health perspective, certainly we're living in a world where we want everything to be easy, always, right? And we've progressed generationally to make things easier, but are they making things easier? I don't think they are. We think we want easy, but the rise in mental health, the rise in ADD, the rise in chronic disease, we kind of need to, for ourselves, and, pick the hard, do the work, pick the hard, because I think even if all this other stuff's going on, AI, politics, all the things, we can only control ourselves. We can only control what we do in our life to make us feel better. So nobody out there gives a toss whether I walk in the morning or not. Maybe my husband, because he loves exercise, but nobody else cares. Only you. And I know, even though I walk for him, it helps me. I know that because I know after weight loss surgery and with the lipedema, it keeps the lymphatics flowing, and I need that to happen. Otherwise, I'm just going to go back to the way I was 2 years ago. So even though he's the instigator, I still, if I really wanted to, I could go, no, maybe I couldn't, I don't know. But it's all these things, choosing the hard is what's going to improve your life. We have to pull ourselves out of this life where everybody wants to make it easy for us. All the pills, that saying, a pill for every ill. There is. And if you're sick from that one pill, we'll give you another pill for whatever that problem has caused, right? Because that's the easy thing. Trouble is, we complain that doctors do this and we complain that this is the way the life's gone, but we accept it as well. We don't have to accept it. I hate to say this, but we don't have to accept it. There is ways around saying no to some things, or saying yes and just not doing it, or not that I'm proponing anything like that. Please, go with your doctor's things, but also if you're taking a pill for something that you know you could change something that you're eating, or you could start exercising, or whatever it is, you're choosing your hard, you know. And I think this is really, really, and this is the hardest thing to change. This is the tricky thing for us, because we just, everything in life is getting so convoluted and confusing, and it's like you're pushing, you know, a wheelbarrow uphill. We just want some of these things to be easy for us. Unfortunately, it's the short-term gain, long-term pain. It really is. That has never changed in all the generations, and particularly now, that has not changed. So I would like to encourage you today to do something hard that you wouldn't normally do. If you normally have toast and coffee for breakfast, have some protein first, right? And then tell yourself, I'll have some toast afterwards if I'm still hungry. But if you have the protein first, you're going to stabilize your blood sugars, and you're going to blunt the insulin spike of having the toast or the coffee afterwards. That's why I never have a coffee on an empty stomach, because it will cause an insulin spike. And with lipedema, we want to keep all hormones, not just thyroid hormones, but pancreatic hormones, which is your insulin and your blood sugar. We want to keep them as steady as possible for our lipedema. So if you are not ready to give up your toast, your coffee, whatever, which I will not be giving up coffee anytime soon that I know of, unless something happens that I think, oh, I need to give up the coffee and test that, then maybe. But my one coffee a day is not going to change until then. But I have the protein first, because that, all the research shows that that blunts the insulin spike. And it does, because I've tested it for myself. I've got a blood glucose meter, a ketone tester. One coffee a day does not kick me out of ketosis. It does not alter my blood sugar. But would it do that if I had it first thing in the morning? Because that's easy to just make the coffee. It might do. I'm not willing to test that though, because I know I feel good doing it this way. So what's your one hard thing that you can do today? It doesn't have to be super hard, but what do you know in your head that you're like, yeah, I could probably do a bit better there, and I'm just picking the easy option? That's all I'm encouraging you to do here, is to consider trying the harder thing until it becomes a habit. I don't know if anyone's seen that, the video that's going around, and you just have to probably Google it and you will find it. And it's the neurons that join together when you form a new habit and a new belief system. Okay, so in our brains, we've got neurons that form pathways, and we've got pathways for every habit, every belief system, everything that we do. And the first thing we have to do, though, if we want to change a habit, and do a harder thing that's better for us, is we have to start doing the harder thing first. So I would always say, have the protein, have whatever, fill up on protein, and then if you still want the toast, go with the toast, but you've got to form that new habit first. And then when you're doing that new habit, or you've got that new belief system long enough, your body is really smart, and it goes, oh, we don't need that neural pathway anymore. She's not using it. Let's break that down, and then we'll use it somewhere else. So that's like the smokers that are reformed smokers that are like, oh, it's because they've broken down that neural pathway. It's gone. Okay, so this is what we need to do to form the better habits till they just become, oh, that's just normal for me. All right, so, but you've got to choose the hard to start with. So lipedema, yes, it's hard to consider weight loss surgery. It's hard to consider carnivore or keto. It's hard to move your body and do all of those things. But you know what's harder is the women that I see in the shops leaning over trolleys that can barely walk. And it's very evident to me that that is lipedema caused, not, food caused. That's harder. To me, not being able to move around, falling down on the ground and not being able to get yourself up, that is harder than choosing a diet that might work for you. It may not, but you've got to choose the hard and try it first, right? So, as the saying goes, quitting is hard, persevering is hard. Which is your hard? What are you going to do? So that's all I wanted to say today, because I came across a few of these moments this week that I'm like, I was trying to cheer someone on from the background going, just choose the harder one and see what happens. So I want that for you. I want you to choose the harder thing and see if you can't make it a habit, till once it becomes a habit, it's not hard anymore. It's just a thing you do. And that takes away the stress of the thinking of doing it. Okay. So, and stress is honestly the biggest thing in our life. If we could all deal with the stress, that would change everybody and everything and our health and all the things. I'm convinced of it. And it's why I will continue to talk about doing the inner work, because it's the stress that's killing us. Okay. It's the stress of what people are thinking of us if we make a choice. It's the stress of what people are thinking of us just with our chronic disease that we have no control over. Like if we're born with something like lipedema, we have no control over that. It's a hereditary thing. Yet here we are taking on our shoulders the stress of what people are thinking about us because we can't do anything about it, which is nuts, because we can't do anything about that. So yeah, that's my thoughts for today before I go off on my walk. So I've had my protein, still had my coffee. Oh, and my one harder thing was, instead of having the monk fruit sugar in my coffee cup today, I had stevia drops, which has even less carbs in it than the monk fruit sugar. I didn't realize how much carbs the monk fruit sugar has in it, even though my insulin spike does not rise with it. It still has a lot more carbs. So that was my one harder, because I prefer the taste of monk fruit sugar to the stevia. So that was my hard today. And I've done that for 2 days in a row today now. And I'm like, oh, it's not so bad, right? So do your hard. And I'm going to go for a walk next. Hopefully it's not too hot yet. It's still early enough. For me, that's still a hard. And if my husband wasn't interested in walking, I'd be so happy. Would I force myself to? Well, yes, I have exercised when I've been single in the past, so I probably would. But it makes it easier that he's there going, right, I'll walk out this door this morning and he'll be there ready to go. So, and in fact, I'm half ready to go. So I just have to change my top and I'm ready to go. So, but that's still hard for me. And I would much rather just have another cuppa, sit and watch some YouTube on a Sunday morning and relax. But it doesn't help my lipedema, right? Doesn't help my health, doesn't help chronic disease, doesn't help my mindset, because the more I don't do, the worse my mental health becomes, which I'm sure is the same for a lot of you that struggle to be able to even move. Because I know I was there. I've got videos of myself trying to walk and things like that. And I just think, wow, is it any wonder I felt the way I felt in my brain? Because I look at what I looked like and I was like, wow, that was really, everything was hard. Everything was hard. Moving was hard, and you put on this mask and this face like, no, I've got it. I can do it. It's all good. But you know how hard it is. I know you know. So choose the hard now and have a great week. And I will see you same time next Sunday. Bye.